All right, it is noon right on time, so we are going to get started. My name is Karen Driscoll, and I'm your Political Affairs and TREPAC Director for HAR. And I am honored today to formally introduce our facilitator for today's webinar. Shad Bogany has served the real estate industry in many capacities over the years, as HAR Chairman of the Board, Texas Realtors Chairman of the Board, and most recently, he was just named the 2020 Texas Realtors Realtor of the Year. He's also has also been HAR Realtor of the Year. All of this is due in large part to Shad's dedication to educating the real estate community and fellow realtors about affordable housing programs and his passion to helping individuals find a place to call home. And that's what this series is all about. Take it away, Shad.
Thank you, Karen. Good afternoon and welcome to our first series of 10 webinars focused on affordable housing. My name is Shad Bogany and I am your official moderator for today's program. Our theme for this annual program will be opening more doors in 2021. Each webinar will be geared towards educating the realtor community about programs, solutions, and opportunities for their clients in this ever-changing financial environment. Throughout the year, we hope you will provide information that will create more awareness and take away from any stigma associated with the idea of affordable housing. All sessions will take place on the third Wednesday of each month from 12 to 1:30. Now you can register online at www.har.com/webinars for each of them. Today's program is being presented by Freddie Mac and is centered around economic trends, demographics, and business solutions for future home buyers. Before I introduce our all-star speakers, I'd like to remind you can put your questions in the chat box. You can put it to everyone. You can also put it to panelists, and we will be monitoring the chat box, and hopefully we'll be able to get all questions in. And since I know a lot of you guys are going to ask us, is it recorded? It will be on HAR TV in case you miss it or you want to revisit it again. At this time, let's get started. And at this time, I'd like to mention our fantastic lineup today. My first speaker today is Carmen Makata. And Carmen Makata is a single family client and community engagement senior manager at Freddie Mac. She is responsible for building and managing industry relations as part of the Affordable Lending Program. She is committed to building awareness of Freddie Mac offerings in alignment with companies' affordable lending access to credit goals. Her team trained over 16,000 real estate professionals in 2020 on affordable products and resources and tools to help existing homeowners, future buyers during the COVID-19 crisis. She started a real estate career as a sales agent in 2002, became a broker in 2006 as a manager, and has held many leadership roles in the industry. Among her many accomplishments, she was 2011 president of National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, launched the NARAP Leadership Academy under her term as president, and was featured by Housing Wire as the 25 most influential women in housing economy. My second speaker for the day is gonna be Monica LaCruz. Monica is an affordable lending senior at Freddie Mac and part of the single family client and community engagement team. She joined Freddie Mac in 2019 as part of the real estate engagement outreach team. She works closely with industry diverse trade associations and real estate companies and local and state realtor associations. Monica has been a finance, mortgage, and real estate industry for over 11 years. She's worn various hats throughout her career and is well respected by our industry partners, known for a keen sense of customer relations, program development, and education and events management. At this time, I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and I'm going to pass the platform over to our Freddie Mac specialist.
Well, thank you so much, Chad, for that introduction. First and foremost, congratulations on all of your recognitions and your contributions to the HAR community. So, and the other thing I wanted to pause for a minute, I really want to send my thoughts and prayers to everyone in Texas. We know that you guys have been dealt a very difficult hand with unprecedented weather. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules, especially under these challenging times. My name is Carmen Mercado. As Shad mentioned, this is something I am very passionate about. Prior to joining Freddie Mac, I was specifically in the real estate industry, selling real estate, managing, and all those other things. But one of the things that I found very quickly since I started my real estate career was that first-time home buyers and underserved markets became kind of my niche market. It was not necessarily intentional. It was by default. And I ended up really loving that part of my business. And I really encourage everyone to find the opportunities that exist within this space. I will also commend the HAR leadership team that we've been working with. They have been the most organized organization that we have worked with. We are really looking forward to participating throughout the year in the various different activities that they have scheduled for you. So thank you for this opportunity. I manage the real estate outreach team within Freddie Mac. My colleague today who's on with me, Monica LaCrue, will be addressing you guys later. Marlena Scott is not available today, but she is also a pivotal part of my team. But what I wanted to do is kind of go over the agenda first to kind of level set. We want this to be as interactive as possible. Although we are virtual, we will entertain the questions on the chat, as Shad mentioned. But let's kind of review what we're going to be covering today. So our agenda is going to look at the Freddie Mac overview. We're going to tell you a little bit about Freddie Mac, who we are, as we move along to the next slide. And we're also going to look at market overview, first-time home buyer markets, who's driving home ownership. We're also going to demystify, Shad, you mentioned that, right? Demystify that word of affordable lending and who's mortgage ready today. We're also going to leave you with some business solutions, but more importantly, resources. This is not a one-time touch, right? We're going to be with you throughout the year, but we want you to engage with us as well throughout the year. And we're going to show you how to do that. So when we look at what's our objective, the objective for this particular course, it truly is to look at, how do you work with low down payment options? What options are there available? How do you access some of the down payment resources that you may or may not be aware of that are available for buyers that you may be working with today, or buyers that you may be working down the line, right? Maybe they're part of that buyer pipeline that we talk about. But then we also have to talk about what I call the big elephant in the room. There's so much aging housing stock. Most of the homes across the US, over 50% of them are 20 years or more. Some of them are 50 or even more than that, built in 1979. I know if I'm part of that building housing stock of 50 or older, and your bones start creaking a little bit, no different with houses. And we're going to talk about some of those solutions as well. So we move to the next slide. Monica's going to be helping me move the slides along. I want to first start with the relationship. This is a relationship building business. So before we get into data, I need to build this relationship with you. So let me tell you a little bit about Freddie Mac. Freddie Mac was chartered in Congress in 1970. We're a very mission-driven organization. So for me, it was really a no-brainer for me to join Freddie Mac about 3 years ago. Because I am very focused on its mission, and that's really to provide stability, liquidity, and affordability, access to affordable credit for the low to moderate income buyers. We do that in many different ways. We do that on the purchase market. We also do that on the rental market. And Freddie Mac has 3 primary lines of business. Monica and myself are part of the single family unit. At Freddie Mac, what that means is any units that are 1 to 4 units are considered single family. We also have a multifamily, which is 5 or more units, and we have a lot of affordable rental units as well. And then we also have the capital markets. And a lot of people may ask themselves, well, why is Freddie Mac getting involved with the real estate agents directly when we do not lend directly? We are part of the secondary mortgage market. So what does this mean? Although we don't lend directly to the buyer that you're working with, we truly are part of your transaction almost every single day. So let me explain. Many of you hear Freddie Mac and wonder, I kind of know they're a GSE, how are you part of my transaction? The buyers that you're working with are working with a lending partner of their choice. And that lender is going to look at what type of mortgages would that particular buyer qualify for. They're also going to look at the different underwriting guidelines that exist for those different mortgage products. Ultimately, they're going to look at Freddie Mac's guidelines and products based on that buyer's ability to actually qualify. If they offer a Freddie Mac product to that buyer will move along in the process and close that transaction with you. That lender will then pull the buyers, all those loans and mortgages that were written under Freddie Mac's guidelines and sell them back to Freddie Mac. Freddie Mac will convert those into securities, and we will go out to find global investors to purchase those loans. Ultimately, being able to provide more liquidity to the lenders that are working with your buyers. So if we did not do that, as well as the other GSE, there would be no liquidity. The lenders would only be able to lend to their capacity. But we know we cannot do this alone. We know that we have to work with the various stakeholders, as we like to call them, that are part of the housing ecosystem. So Monica, Marlena, and myself are focused specifically on the real estate industry, real estate agents such as yourself that are at the point of sale, educating all the real estate agents that we can about what's available in terms of products, resources, and tools. We do have other colleagues within our single family unit that work with housing finance agencies, and that is one of the sessions you're going to be in for a treat. We also work with non-for-profit housing counseling agencies, which also we're going to be bringing to the table as part of this series. So it takes a lot of people in the housing ecosystem. I've always got, it says it takes a village to raise a child. The same way it takes a village and a network of real estate professionals across all the spectrums, lenders and all of those, to put forward a good foot forward in terms of the first-time home buyer segment. And it's a lot of work. It's not easy, and we recognize that. So we want to thank you for being interested in this particular segment of the first-time home buyers and affordable markets. Now we want to kind of go over some overall market overview. What is the market doing? But before I ask Monica to move to the next one, I want to ask a question. I said I want this to be interactive, where we're virtual, so we need to leverage a chat in order to do that. I would love you to answer in the chat before, what are some of the barriers that your first-time home buyers are facing? So I would love to see and I'm going to share some market overview, but I want to see what is happening in Houston. What are your first-time home buyers? What are some of the biggest barriers that they're facing? So I'm seeing over here, great, down payments. Let's see, down payment seems to be the winner. Credit scores, we're going to address all of that. Great. I want to make sure qualifying with student loans, we're going to address that. Low credit scores, credit. Okay, great. Debt to income ratios, DTI, some of the lingo, love that. Credit and down payment. Wow, you guys are really on it. Very, very, just going through them quickly. And yes, programs, that help with closing costs, all high property taxes. Absolutely understand that. I am actually reporting today from Long Island, New York. So we are very, one of the ones to have the most highest taxes. So completely understand that being a big barrier. So great responses. So now let's take a look at what's happening in the market. Those are actually barriers that we're seeing across the nation. So thank you for participating. And we're going to address most of those, I believe, in this presentation. But what we are seeing, despite all of those barriers, there are mortgage rates continue to decline. I mean, this is historically low. You're actually seeing individuals that have refinanced twice in 1 year. because the interest rates have gone down so low in comparison. I feel that we've been talking about this for years. Interest rates are low, interest rates are low. But anyone who was in the business many years ago, they were double digits. So although there are those barriers, one of the barriers that has been mitigated a little bit really has been the interest rate, right? So, and I know it's not just interest rate that will impact homeownership, but at least this is a positive part of the market in which we find ourselves today. So when we look at the other thing is that is helping the economy right now, or previous homeowners, is the fact that they are really benefiting from appreciation values that are happening across the country. This is a snapshot of October 2020. So our economist office always looks at different snapshots. And in October 2020, overall, there was a 9.7 appreciation value across the US. If you take a look in Texas, it was 8%. And then you take a look across the country, there were some that were even double digits. So what this means is that you may have had previous buyers or customers that closed with a transaction with you a year, 2 years ago, or even longer, that are now reaping the benefits of appreciation. And what does that mean? That means that they can potentially benefit from taking refinance and reducing their interest rate. They can tap into their equity potentially to maybe have a home office that they may need now because a lot more individuals have the benefit of working from home. Or sometimes they may tap into this, appreciation to purchase a second home. So this is a great conversation starter for individuals that you already assisted with their properties. I know when I was selling real estate, always looking a way to stay in touch with your past customers. Number one, just as a trusted advisor, but secondly, as another way to generate referral business. So imagine if, I called Shad and said, did you know that your home is appreciated X amount of dollars? Have you considered purchasing a second home, or have you considered refinancing to reduce your rate? You're not a loan originator, but you're a relationship and a trusted advisor in your community. And the more information, the more savings that potential current homeowner may have, think of the strength of that conversation with that past customer. But this is also really important as you're working with buyers who are maybe on the sidelines and asking themselves, should I buy? Homeownership overall, long-term, appreciates in values. Market is cyclical, we know that. But overall, it will continue to build wealth and appreciation. And this is really important in order to continue to pass on that wealth generations over generations. So when we look at the next slide, it talks to us about what is the forecast. So we take a lot of our information from our chief economist at Freddie Mac, and this was a snapshot in time in January 2021. I say it was a snapshot because that's exactly what it is. At the time of the forecast, when they were looking at it, they projected that in 2021, we were going to be seeing about 2.9 interest rates. Actually, as of last week, they were about 2.77, 2.81, so even a little lower than that. There is a projection that by 2022, they'll increase a little bit, somewhere around 3.2, but that is a historically low interest rate. And these are the conversations that we need to be having with the buyers, because it's not always only about the cost of the house or the interest rate. Is really those two combined is what can they afford, that monthly payment, what can they afford sustainably? And what's the difference between a mortgage that they purchase at 2.9% versus 3.2%, and that may help them make those decisions as they move along. And that's where you come into play, right? I mean, you are constantly getting access to individuals who are asking you about, what do I do to purchase a home? So the more information you can put out there to help demystify some of those barriers, the better it's going to be. Let's go ahead, and I do see that I have comments. I want to be respectful of that. You will get the slides through HAR. This is more of a real estate professional. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a client facing. There's a lot of terminology and maybe a little things that may may be more appropriate for the professional setting than it would be for a client setting. But you can definitely share the knowledge and the information that you have received through the session. So let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. When we looked at mortgage originations, what you'll see is that they're still projected to increase through 2019, and we actually recently even saw the 2020, 2021 data, as you can see at the right-hand set of the columns. They are projected to increase. We're actually seeing and expecting a continued activity around the refinance. There's been individuals that have refinanced twice in 1 year just to take benefits of the ever-going decreasing of the interest rates. So this is a great conversation starter for your past customers, but there's a lot of activity with that. I will also say that you have to just make your buyers or past customers aware that because there's so much of activity, things are taking a little longer also to get approved. You may be seeing that in your market, right? Because the loan originators have been very, very busy with refinance, individuals that are calling them back and saying, I want to reduce my interest rate, I want to remove my PMI. So just be patient and set the right expectations with the buyers that you're working with. So now let's talk about the changing phase of the buyer. So at Freddie Mac, we like to look at different market segments so that we can have a better understanding of what kind of products, resources, and tools are needed. So we look at our own data. We have a chief economist's office. We have a market research. We have tons of data analytical people that are looking and slicing and dicing all the information so that we can make informed decisions around guidelines or any necessary changes that we may need to make. Obviously, we want to always lend responsibly. But actually, Monica, if you go to the slide before, you may have had a cheat sheet there for a second, but I want to ask a question because I want to get engagement here. Is what do you think is the percentage of buyers in 2020 that were first-time home buyers? If you can enter that into the chat. So what percentage of all buyers in 2020 actually were first-time home buyers? Let's see. Okay, I'm seeing 5%, 45, 65, 35. Okay. Oh. Okay, we have a good range, 42, 20, 25. Okay, I'm going to ask another question before I move on. What is the average age of all buyers in 2020? Let's see what your answers here. Oh, I love that you're interacting with me. Thank you. In lieu of not being able to see your faces, this is as close as I'm going to get. So thank you for that. Okay, 40, 28. Okay. Okay, so now let's go to the next slide, and that's the cheat sheet. We're going to give you the answers to some of those. So we looked at the NAR data. This is one of your benefits for being a realtor. So I encourage you to go and download their actual 2020 buyer trends, because it really will give you, it's a 180-page document. You may or may not want to read 180 pages, but for this presentation, I wanted to pull out a couple of highlights. So actually, first-time home buyers represented 31%. So you can grade yourself there of all buyers in 2020. The typical buyer age of all buyers, not first-time home buyers, was 47 years old. So you can grade yourself there, see how you did in terms of how you answered the question. The other demographic that continues to increase from 2019 to 2020 based on NAR study was single females. In 2019, they represent 17% of all purchases and actually 19% in 2020. So that is another market you want to start asking yourself, what are you doing to tap into that business, right? So when you take a look, and I see that somebody said actually it was 33% in 2019. First-time home buyers in 2019 represented 33% based on the NAR study, and it did go down to 31. So 2020 was 31%. So it's slipping a little bit. And you all kind of answered the question, right? Why is that? Number one, we live in a very unique situation with COVID-19. You have also a lot of competition for affordable housing. So I can see why that first-time home buyer demographic slipped a little bit from last year to this year. But there's still 31% out there that are actively looking to purchase. And when you look at the single females, also representing an increased market, it's an opportunity for you to work with that cohort as well. So we want to make sure that we're looking at solutions for first-time home buyers. And we're going to address some of the barriers that you yourself shared with us at the beginning when I started the question. So we're going to address those as we move along. When you take a look at the next slide, we also look at generationally. It seems that millennials and Gen Xers continue to want to purchase a home. They're still aspirational about it. There may be some difficulties, yes, and you know that better than anyone because you're working with them every single day. But the truth is that there is still a lot of aspiration to homeownership. 20% of millennials had responded saying that they would like to buy a home within a year. Now, I have another quiz question for you. What percentage of the US population, because one of the things that showed up when I asked about the barriers, you all mentioned student debt. So before I show you the calculations that we have made on student debt, just curious, what percentage do you think of the US population actually carries student debt? Enter that into your chat, please. 10, 85%, that's high. Okay, let's take a look. A lot. Oh, I love that answer. That's like a newscaster that tells you what the weather's going to be like tomorrow. 50-50 chance they get it right. Okay, so Monica, let's show them the response on the next slide. Actually, 90% of the US population do not have student debt. And I want you to take a minute and think about that. Obviously, these numbers change year to year, but 90% do not have student debt. I say that, and I usually get that wow, Sharon, response. And LaKayla, I do. I get that response because what happens is that we sometimes, we've been hearing about millennials for so long, it feels like forever. I remember when I was selling real estate thinking millennials, they're not ready to buy, but yet they're driving homeownership now. Because time goes by that quickly. But if we have this perception in our head, and Shad talked about that, right, is misconceptions or demystifying, is then we kind of hold ourselves back a little bit about potentially wanting to seek out these opportunities because we think, oh, these millennials are, completely, just drowning in student debt. Chad, you had a good question regarding minorities. We can follow up with you. I know that our research team has looked at the different minority groups in terms of their student debt. So I don't have that in this deck, but we can definitely follow up with you. So when you look at the student debt, actually the older millennials, those are kind of on the cusp, right? Those are right now, depending on who you ask, millennial populations are considered up to like 38, 39 years old. So that older millennial population tends to have a higher student debt of $10,000 or more versus the younger millennials are actually holding less student debt. So interesting because another thing, although it's not on the slide that I shared before, if you look at the 2019 NAR buyer and seller profile, it actually showed when it was 33% of first-time home buyers, it actually showed that over, I think it was 88% of those in 2019 were 29 years or younger. So it really coincides with the fact that the older millennials are actually carrying more of the student debt. So when we look at data, that's what we're looking for. Right? We're looking for what are we seeing in different reports? Are they kind of telling the same story? And what are the opportunities here? So if you know that millennials, a lot of them are not drowning in student debt, how do we reach those millennials to make sure that they're making the right decisions to maintain their credit score and to really look at homeownership from an opportunity standpoint to build wealth starting at a younger age. The longer you hold your real estate, the more wealth you can build through appreciation. So that's where the education comes. Now, when we take a look at the next slide, what we'll see is that based on the 2019 study, we still see that the majority of the buyers are to the tune of 53% in 2019 were first-time homebuyers that were married couples. But we're also seeing that that's changing a little bit, and we wanted to bring that to your attention. The other subset that I shared with you that increased from 2019 to 2020 was the single females. And if you look at the single females, if they're not on your radar, they actually should. The single females of loans that Freddie Mac purchased, which shows on the next slide, will show you that we purchased about 20.3% of the loans that we purchased in 2019 were actually originated to single females. And that is really important for you to know when you're looking to drive homeownership, when you're looking to reach out to single females as a potential for them to purchase a home. That's rising. So that's another great market intel piece that as you're trying to build your kind of marketing plans, how do you reach these individuals and how can you work with them? But we wanted to dive in a little deeper, and the next slide will show you the adult composition. So the single female, second largest home buying segment after married couples, what you're seeing is that their age group is more between the older generation, 65 to 73. So single females within the ages of 65 and 73 actually represented 22% of the single female purchases. So why do I say this? The type of housing that they may be looking for may be different. It may be, 55 and older communities. It may be 62 and older communities. So you want to, because you want to take a look at the data, not just to look at the data, but really dissect it a little bit further, and then say, okay, where do I reach the demographics within each of the different categories and help them achieve homeownership? Some of these can be second purchases, not first-time purchases. Again, but think about that first-time home buyer overall being driven right by kind of the millennial group. And the other thing that you'll see as we move along is that the millennial group is also a much more diverse segment, and it even is diverse when it comes to the overall US population of how individuals are earning income today. So actually the Pew Research Center had put this study out about 2 years ago saying that about 44 million Americans today were either self-employed or working for someone that was self-employed. And you know that because as a real estate professional, you're an independent contractor and you are self-employed. And because of that, what does this mean? This will impact their qualifying factors, right? They filling out taxes, depending on what they're reporting on the taxes, the losses or the net proceeds or profits that their business is making. Have they been in business for over 5 years? How many years of tax returns will they have to show the lender? And we're going to have, very in-depth training coming up about products and qualifying and all of that. But we wanted just to kind of just show you overall what was happening across the all US diverse market segment. So we know that millennials are driving force. We also know that the average age of buyers, all buyers, was 47. So I want you to take a look at the second set of columns that you're seeing on your screen. The second set of columns will show you the demographic changes between 2010 and 2018 for the millennial population of 18 and 39. So just want you to remember that slide that I shared with you about first-time home buyers. When you look at that age group, the growth is coming from the diverse market segments. You see the darker blue, the orange, and the gold color are representative of the Black, African American, Hispanic, and Asian communities. And within that age group that's driving the first-time home buyer cohort, they're actually increasing from the diverse market segments. So when we say that millennials are one of the most diverse populations, if not the most, it's showing in the demographic charts that you're seeing. The third set of columns that you see here are one I really correlate to the overall age of all buyers. If you remember, it was 47. So look at that third set of columns, 40 to 64-year-olds. That 47-year-old kind of average age for all buyers falls in that category. Once again, the growth is coming from the Hispanic, African American, and Asian communities. So as we can see, we want to pay attention to what does this mean, right? What type of home ownership, you have a lot of multi-generational households within the different ethnic demographic groups. So there may be a type of purchasing. The homes that they're purchasing may be more unique, or they may be interested in having multi-generational opportunities to be able to bring in their parents or their grandparents into that home. Now we're going to take a look at, we're going to kind of move along. I'm going to just look in the chat to make sure I don't have any questions, but I wanted to give you some examples, not only at a national level. I wanted to kind of dig in a little bit to some of the data samplings for Houston and Texas, but I am going to take a second and just take a look here to see. No, we're good right now. So let's take a look at some of the data samplings for Houston and Texas. So what you're seeing on the screen right now, it is really a comparison. So we wanted to take a look at the age population of what's driving home ownership. There was a larger percentage of people who were in the Houston, what we call Metropolitan Statistical MSA analysis. And that shows that first-time home buyers, as well as all buyers, you have a large population. And when you look at how does that compare to the United States, you are actually over-indexing a little bit in Texas overall. And then when you look at the different age demographics, you're over-indexing. So 25 to 34 years old, as an example, across the US, that represents about 13.9%. And when you take a look at Houston MSA, that was like 15.1. So you're seeing that you are actually prime right now. You have buyers that are falling within the first-time home buyer category, as well as all buyers category. This is the time for you to be able to provide kind of the information for them to kind of cross over to being a first-time homeowner. Let's go ahead and take a look at owner occupancy. So we took a look at owner occupancy, and actually home ownership rate in Houston is a little lower than in the US. So this is an opportunity for, financial literacy education, home ownership education, maybe individuals not understanding the process of where or what they need to do to even get started. So these are some of the things that you can actually leverage and really go out there and help them understand what the opportunities are. We know that there's a lack of inventory, and that's across the US. And there's a lot of competition for those turnkey ready properties. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But now let's take a look at the average income. So when individuals are looking to purchase a property, not only do they have to get pre-qualified by a lender and work with you as a real estate agent, but some of the things that come into play for the pre-qualification is their income. So when we look at income across the US, this is just a snapshot of what the overall US population is making in terms of income. And then we did a comparison, as you can see on the slide. It shows you how that differs across the board in Houston, as well as specifically for the different ethnic groups. Overall, Hispanics in Houston were averaging lower incomes than the non-Hispanic whites. And when you take a look at the African American community, as well as the Asian community, you can see kind of how you're benchmarking from a Houston perspective, from a Texas perspective. And these are things that are important because these are going to be qualifying factors for them to purchase a loan. But they're also going to be qualifying factors for them to take advantage of down payment programs. A lot of the down payment programs are intentionally made to help low to moderate income buyers. And what that means is individuals, households that are 80% or less of that average median income in your particular market. So that's why it's important to look at the income, because these will be part of the qualifiers for some of the down payment programs. Another thing that is really important is credit score. As we look at credit score, we look at, okay, are individuals really mortgage ready? And I'll talk about mortgage ready in a second, but this is the average credit score, as the latest credit data was showing that overall in the US, about 694. I've seen some, depending on when you pull this data, I have seen some hover about the 700 mark for the US. Now, how does that compare to Texas? About the same, a little lower, but not significantly enough for that buyers to potentially qualify for a mortgage. And in Houston, about 674. So although the credit score is a little lower, it is still qualifies many buyers to actually achieve home ownership. So it's helping buyers understand they don't need perfect credit. They don't need an 800 score. And I think that's another myth that we live in, that people think, well, I don't have enough credit, or I don't have good credit, but they don't really understand the definition of that. Some people don't even know their credit scores, right? So, and right now during COVID, the three credit bureaus are offering free credit score updates, I believe, on a weekly basis. So you should go and take a look at that and share that with your buyers or potential buyers. Now, so we know that student debt is a big issue in calculating affordability. We know that FICO scores is another thing that calculates affordability, and income, right? Those are, and of course, debt and assets and all of that. But I have another quiz just to make sure that we still have your attention, is what percentage of millennials do you think are mortgage ready? So I demystify the fact about the student debt. Now I want you to help me demystify the fact, what percentage of US millennials do you think are mortgage ready? Okay, 50, 20%. Okay, Tanya, I see 70%, 25. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay. Well, some really good numbers here. Okay, wondering some have heard my presentation are pretty close. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Let's take a look, Monica, and let's reveal the answer. This was pre-COVID, right before COVID. So I have to, make sure I preface that, and we will continue to look at these numbers and update them accordingly, because we do with all our data. But when we look at mortgage ready, what we at Freddie Mac identify as mortgage ready is individuals that are actually what we call credit visible. That means they are using credit in some way, shape, or form, whether it's a credit card for just their usage, or an auto loan, or student debt, or any other source of credit that's being reported to one of the credit bureaus. Before COVID, right before COVID, about 37 million of the population were actually considered mortgage ready. And when you take a look at the millennials, actually the millennials that fell between 21 and 27 were 47%. Some of you were very close in your responses. And you take a look at the older millennials, they were about 33%. Also, some of you were very close, so depending on how you were answering that question. But when we did is we also looked at 24 millennials in total were actually mortgage ready. What does this mean? At Freddie Mac, that means that they had a credit score of 620 or better, a debt to income ratio of 25% or less, no bankruptcies or foreclosures in the past 84 months, and no severe delinquency. So that's what we were looking for in terms of identifying them as mortgage ready. What we did here is we also broke that down, because there are some myths about the diverse market segment as to whether, and Chad, you alluded to that, right, is let's demystify that. There are many diverse communities, 4.3 Asian Americans mortgage ready, 7.8 million Hispanics, 2.9 African Americans are mortgage ready today. So when you look at this data, what this means is that you can be working with all buyers, of course, as we do as realtors, but you can also help demystify the fact that there are not mortgage ready individuals within different diverse market segments, because as you can see, there are plenty. And we need to start looking at how can we get them from being renters and actually getting them ready to purchase. The last thing I'll say on this slide is when we look at mortgage weak, we also don't look at that as bad credit. What that means is these are individuals that could potentially be not participating in credit. They're not maybe getting a credit card. They don't have student debt. A lot of these things, and this is, yes, the question is this for the whole US? Yes, this is the whole USA. But when you look at individuals and how they look at credit, that could also be a cultural nuance that's important for you to learn about. There are some individuals within different cultures that don't believe in taking credit. They want to pay things cash. They don't want to have debt. So helping them understand that in the US, it is part of building your credit, and it is part of being able to qualify for a mortgage. So that's something that I want to put out there. The other thing I want before I move over, I have another question. So in general, how long would you say that it would take somebody to save for a 20% down payment? Put it in your chat. If I needed to save 20% down payment in Houston, how long do you think it would take me to actually save for that down payment at 20%? I see 10 years, 8 years. No, just in general, not millennials. Just question is for anyone. 5 years, a year, 6 months. How long would it take the average buyer to save 20%? Okay. Okay, you guys, I love it. Depends on how much debt they have. Good response. Okay, let's show them, Monica. On the next slide, we'll show you, this is the time to save for the mortgage-ready population. So as you can see, most mortgage calculators, I always say this, and it's a pet peeve of mine, they default to 20%. So we're kind of helping with that myth that you need 20% for down payment. But if you take a look, and of course, I love some of the responses. It depends on where they live. It depends on in general, right, their debt and how much they can put aside for savings. But generally speaking, it would take anywhere between 14 to 23 years to save for a down payment. That's going to be, of course, higher in the high cost market areas and a little less in some of the more affordable markets. But now if you take a look at a 3% down payment, that's more feasible. When I look at a 3% down payment, I feel a lot more optimistic of being able to go to a real estate agent and say, I would like to, be able to work with you and purchase a home. So this is, really important because it will take longer if they have the thought process that it's going to take them 20%. But yet if they understand that, no, there are programs out there that they can actually purchase with as little as 3%, that's really going to help them. I say forever because if they say 10%, 10 plus years, the cost of the home went up and it's forever a catch-up game. That is true if they have to save for 20%, right? They may feel that they're on this treadmill that they can't get off of. But if they understand that there's a goal in mind and that 3 years, maybe 2 years down the line, they can potentially save and purchase a home, that's going to make a big difference. And that's where your education of this particular group is extremely important. So the next thing I wanted to show you was kind of a map of the US, and this obviously refers to what I commented earlier. It really depends. If they're in the high cost markets, and that tends to be the coastal markets, it's going to take them longer to save for that 3%. But if they're in affordable markets, and that's what this map shows. I know it's a little busy, but if you can pinpoint, the Houston and Texas market in here, it'll show you whether the light blue means that it would take them less than a year to save for that 3%, and the red, the opposite, would show them that it would take 10 plus years based on the affordability index in that particular market. So I say that because, again, it depends on the market. So some of your responses were right on, spot on. So now let's take a look at the other slide. It shows you kind of the affordability areas. What this said is, okay, if the individuals that are mortgage ready, based on the affordability pricing that's available, what you're seeing is that the dark blue spots on there, the little dots, they show that greater than 70% of the mortgage ready could actually afford a home in the market in which they live in. If you see some of the other dots, it says less than 25% is that lighter green, and then kind of the red is like 35 to 70%. And you can see that the affordability changes depending geographically where these individuals are living. Now, I want to really kind of now move into from data to business solutions. I'm not going to do a deep dive on our products because we do have a series of events scheduled for the year. So I want to make sure that we bring our subject matter experts that are going to participate in the upcoming trainings. But I do have a quiz for you. What loans currently offer a low down payment option. So in the chat, enter what type of loans offer a low down payment option that you're familiar with. I'm going to take a look at some of your responses. FHA, 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 VA. Okay, we have something other than FHA, VA. Okay. USDA, very good. Okay, now, Monica, let's talk a little bit about those solutions as we move along to the next slide. Your answers were not incorrect, but they did leave out most of some conventional. Okay, Aisha, thank you so much for that. Yes, so there are all those loans you talked about, FHA, Fannie Mae, USDA, VA, definitely offer low down payment options. But one that I want you to become very familiar with, of course, selfishly, is the Freddie Mac 3% conventional low down payment option. We call our mortgage Home Possible Mortgage. Home Possible specifically was written, the guidelines were written to make sure that we were reaching low to moderate income buyers. So what does that mean? Low to moderate income buyers means that individuals, households that are actually earning 80% or less of the average median income. So if you remember, when I shared that slide that showed the income and some of the disparity in the income, I said that's going to be important because that may qualify them for different loan products, but it may also qualify them for different down payment assistance programs. So we are going to have one of our subject matter experts actually do a full deep dive on this loan, but I'm going to give you some highlights just being conscious of our time. Home Possible is for 80% or less of the average median income. They can actually purchase a loan with putting as little as 3%. They can have multi-financing layer, so they can have a down payment assistance program with this loan. They do have to make 80% or less of the average median income. And you're not lenders, but I will show you where you can find that information in terms of whether they would qualify for a Home Possible based on income alone. Obviously, credit needs to be pulled, FICO scores, all of that, debt to income ratios, but we'll show you where you can find out basic information. The other thing is important is that Home Possible, it is not only for first-time home buyers. A couple things I want to point out here. Number one, it could be for a refinance. So someone has a higher interest rate, they can refinance into a Home Possible mortgage. They still have to be under that 80% AMI. They can also purchase up to 4-unit properties. The down payment goes up with 2 and 3 and 4 units, but is not 20%. So this is a great option for individuals that are looking for multifamily investments in terms of owning a property. They can own more than one property. They can own up to 2 properties, so they can use Home Possible also to purchase a second home. What are some of the benefits? And that is the slide that compares Home Possible to FHA. So a lot of you responded FHA, FHA, FHA. So let's talk about what's the difference and why would it be potentially more beneficial for many buyers to actually get a conventional loan. FHA, I have a question for you. When can I remove the PMI from an FHA loan? Enter into never. Let's see. 12 years, never, 80%. Okay. So the answer is with an FHA loan, at one point you were able to remove the MI, but that's no longer the case. It's been like that for several years. When you have an FHA loan, you will have an upfront mortgage insurance premium. Most buyers that fall within that affordable market will use that. What they'll do is they'll actually finance the upfront fee. So they're chipping away at the equity without even stepping a foot into that home. In addition to that, they will have the MI for the life of the loan, regardless whether they have 20% equity or 50% equity. So that's important because if you have someone you helped purchase a property before, they may be able, with the price appreciation, move from an FHA loan into a Home Possible loan. Home Possible is a conventional loan. It does have MI premium, but it does not have the upfront premium. That's really important to know because that they don't have to finance an upfront premium. In addition to that, once they actually have 78% equity, so at 80% equity, they just contact their servicer and they can actually go ahead without having to refinance. They will go ahead and have to get an appraisal done. I actually have somebody in my family who's doing this right now, is getting an appraisal done on their mortgage, their Home Possible mortgage, eliminate the PMI. So that's important because what happens is now that person does not have to refinance. They just pay the appraisal fee. And that in her particular case, it was like $150. And now if she has the 20% equity, is going to be able to remove the MI for the life of the loans. Trying to read some questions here before. Where can I find the average income? I will share with that shortly. Could lenders do FHA, do Home Possible? No, many of the lenders, actually most lenders, will work with different products. So it's a matter of you just speaking to your lenders that you work with and letting them know you want to learn more about the Freddie Mac 3% conventional called Home Possible for your buyers. Most of them will price different loans for that buyer based on the qualifications, and they will then give them various options. FHA is sometimes a knee-jerk reaction. For a while, that was the only thing that was available. But now I think it's the time to challenge status quo and ask, would this be more beneficial for my buyer, given that they can actually start removing some of remove completely the PMI? That is one of the major benefits. Plus, we do not have the upfront premium. Last thing I'll say about this slide is that also the MI is calculated. There's different calculations for MI, I should say. On a conventional standard loan, it's a little higher. On a Home Possible, it's reduced because it's specifically intentionally looking to open and create access to credit for the low to moderate income buyers. So let's go ahead to the next slide. Let's say you have an individual who's above that 80% average median income, and I'm going to show you where you can find that data, and specifically for your zip code. It's something a tool that I use a lot. But if you have individuals that are purchasing a home and they could afford maybe more than a 3%, how many of you are seeing competing offers? I mean, you're seeing that? Just kind of give me a little snapshot on the chat. Competing offers, above asking price. At least that's what I'm hearing when I talk to people. And maybe you have a buyer who has enough funds to maybe offer that above asking price, but then that means that they have to reduce their down payment because they may have to be paying above that appraisal value, right? So if you have a buyer that's above that 80% AMI, but still looking for a low down payment option, they still can do a conventional 3%. That loan for us is called HomeOneSM Mortgage. The difference between HomeOne and Home Possible is the fact that it is for one of the buyers on HomeOne has to be a first-time home buyer, where Home Possible, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. The other thing is that it is for their primary residence, where the Home Possible, you could have purchased a second home. HomeOne is specifically for higher income earners above that 80%, 3% down, same features, no upfront MI fee, and also the MI can be removed without a refinance once they receive that 20%. So that is another great tool for you. One of the benefits that HomeOne offers is exactly that. It really is looking at the homeownership properties, and the next slide will show you kind of couple of the highlights of the benefits that we see for HomeOne, which is preparing them to be able to be eligible, especially in a competing market right now. You may want to take a look with your lender and have a conversation with them and ask them whether or not they understand and work with HomeOne for your low to moderate income buyers and HomeOne for your buyers that are making above that 80%, or Home Possible for your low to moderate income buyers. Let me just take a quick look at a first-time home buyer use a HomeOne. First-time home buyer can use a HomeOne. It is for single, not for duplexes. Unfortunately, it's a single family residence. Can the program combine with other assistance programs? Yes, they can be combined with other assistance programs. I don't know specifically the one that you're mentioning about Harvey Homeowner Assistance Program, but you can speak to the provider of that program and your lender. But we do allow multiple layer financing as long as we take the first lien position. Okay, so let's go ahead. Again, we're going to have an in-depth training on Home Possible with one of our subject matter experts. So I encourage you to join for that session. But what we wanted, just some highlights, is really just as a fixed rate mortgage, and it really can help many more individuals, especially under this current competing market. Let's go to the next slide. We also are going to be bringing forward through HAR different trainings on different products. So today I just wanted to highlight Home Possible because that's our affordable product. Home One, because it's still an affordable in sense, is 3%, but that is for above 80% AMI. But what you also wanted to take a look at is we have products, and we're going to bring training to you on choice renovation. We talked about the aging housing stock, and really across America, that is an issue. So we're going to bring a subject matter expert who's going to train on choice renovation as well as green choice. These are products that can be used for either energy efficiency and renovation. And I know I talked about earlier is that turnkey. We did a recent survey with real estate professionals and asked them, what are buyers, first-time home buyers looking for? And at least your peers responded that they were looking, majority were looking for turnkey homes. But there's a lot of competition for turnkey properties. So maybe the conversation needs to turn around. Let's look at those homes that are not so turnkey. And maybe you can leverage a renovation loan and be able to make the renovations for that particular product. The beauty of the choice renovation is that you can actually purchase a home and they'll look at the assessed value of after completion. And then with green choice, you'll also be able to do some energy efficiency products. And yeah, some of the solar panels, sometimes it's just insulation, and it's a single close. So we'll be talking really in depth about both of these programs. I see that there's some questions coming in. I'm glad to see that because we actually already have secured our Freddie Mac subject matter expert who will be coming to talk more about these particular programs. Monica has put on the screen the dates for those particular trainings. So if you don't, I know that HAR is going to do a phenomenal job at making sure that you're going to keep abreast of the different trainings. But on your screen, you can see that it shows you that May 19th, we're going to have our subject matter expert do a deeper dive on Home Possible, just really understanding how they can come down with that down payment, gift money, all of that. And then on July 21st, we're going to have our choice renovation and green choice specialist who's going to talk about everything that they have to offer. Before we move along, I am going to look just quickly at some of the questions because we are going to transition into resources that Freddie Mac has available for you in addition to the work that we're doing with HAR. So just give me a second. Let's see. Credit score. So yes, we get this a lot. A lot of say, what is the minimum credit score required for Home Possible or Home One? And does it vary? So Freddie Mac doesn't put a credit score, specific credit score, because we do look at so many different variation factors in terms of giving an approval for our qualifiers. So the lender sometimes will have an overlay. So a lender may have a certain credit score limit that they would go down to. So that is a conversation for the lender. We don't have a credit score in our guidelines specifically. Our loan tends to be a little bit on the higher credit score, above that 640 mark. Again, some lenders may have a different overlay, but Freddie Mac does not have a specific credit score attached. And how we calculate student debt, all of those things, if you really want to learn, please participate, because even how we calculate student debt for our product is different. And that sometimes helps buyers qualify for more of a home. Let me see one last question before I pass it on to Monica. Already in the high season, we need to get ready to make contact, loan originators. That is a great way to learn by fire. Oh, I love this. LOs, first of all, LOs loan originators don't tend to be shy when reaching out to real estate professionals, at least not in Long Island. Most of the time it was like, hey, can we have a cup of coffee? Can I bring some bagels over to your office? This is a great time before, and you're already jumping into the spring season, and I understand the comments that are coming in. But what I would say is you want to learn about these at your leisure and not while you're in a transaction. I mean, yes, you can learn rapid fire while you're in a transaction, but if you can be proactive about it and go ahead and set some time apart with your LOs and loan officers and sit down and let them know, tell me more about how you're working with Home Possible. Tell me more how you're leveraging the Freddie Mac Home One. That way, when you do have a buyer, you know which lenders in your market are actually familiar, no different than if you have a VA loan. You may have a go-to person or two that really are good at putting together VA loans, right? No different. So that's why I encourage you, reach out to the lenders in your market and have this conversation with them. Without further ado, I want to be respectful of time. I would like to pass this along to my colleague, Monica. And what Monica is going to be doing is really providing a kind of a quick look at all the resources that Freddie Mac has to offer. There are tons of resources. And one of those resources, which I've seen come in, has been questions about how do I find out, what the average medium income is. Monica's going to cover all of that. That's going to give me a little bit of a break from talking, but I will come back at the end to wrap things up. But I want to thank you for being with us, and more importantly, for engaging with us here on the questions. So Monica, ask a lot of questions, and I'll take a look to see if they're asking you questions as well. But with that, I'm going to turn my camera off and give all the attention to Monica.
Thank you, Carmen. So I'm going to wrap up the presentation to kind of go over some tools and resources that you can use to stay engaged. These resources and tools are designed to help both you as a real estate professional and your buyers. I'm going to cover a lot of information, a lot of links and hyperlinks and websites for you guys to check out. Just rest assured, we will send a recap with all of those links directly after the presentation, directly to HAR, so you'll be able to have access to all of the information after the webinar. So, sorry, mouse keeps going back and forth. I got to click in there. Okay, so the first resource is My Home. Now, My Home is a consumer-facing website that provides answers to common questions related to home ownership. It's a great website. It has infographics, quizzes, videos that buyers can use to gain knowledge about the home buying process. It's a great tool for you to use after an open house. When following up with those who attended, include this link in an email. Your buyers can view at their own pace and without ads. It's also a great tool for you to use to fish for more buyers. Post this on your social media page. Remind your followers that you are the go-to when it comes time to buying a home. The website also has information for buyers looking to rent, refinance, or even sell. Now, Carmen talked a lot about, the importance of credit score and down payment. So we've developed Credit Smart. It's actually celebrating 20 years this year in 2021. So Credit Smart is financial education that provides consumers information about how to get ready to purchase a home. There's 12 modules. It has topics covering restoring your credit, closing on a loan, avoiding credit traps. It's a great free resource that your buyers can use to gain knowledge about the home buying process. Maybe you have that buyer who's trying to save for that 3% down. There's a whole module created on budgeting. They can download actual budget worksheets where they can create their own savings plan. There's also a module dedicated to restoring your credit. There's actual concrete actions that your buyers can use, that they can take to help restore their credit. It's also available in Spanish. I know, obviously, being in Texas and Houston is also a highly Hispanic market. And so this Credit Smart is also available in Spanish. One important thing I'd like to note, and I'm going to change to the next slide, is we have a Credit Smart Train the Trainer. Now, Credit Smart, as a real estate professional, you can become certified to teach Credit Smart in your community. It's free to get certified. It takes 4 webinar trainings. They're 90 minutes. Our next training is coming up on March 2nd. You have to attend all 4. Upon completion, you'll take a quick quiz, and then you'll become certified to teach Credit Smart in your community. And I'll drop the link again on how you can register for that. Again, it's free. Our next resource is Credit Smart Homebuyer U. Like Credit Smart, it teaches consumers how to make sound financial decisions, but this actually walks them through the home buying process. It's free. Again, it's also available in Spanish as well. And it walks them through the home buying process. So it's great because, like Carmen mentioned, Home Possible and Home One, they might need home buyer education, and this qualifies for home buyer education. Once they complete the course, they actually get a certificate. They can go straight to their lender to be saved in their file, ready for closing. Again, a free resource for you and your buyers. Now, Freddie Mac works with 14 HUD-approved housing counseling agencies across the country, and these centers work with potential buyers to get them ready for home ownership. I encourage you to look up the one in your market. Not only are they a great resource for you to send your buyers to, maybe they need some extra hand-holding, these centers can help them get ready. You want the people who work here to know who you are. Also, we're living in COVID-19 environment still, and these resources are great because they're helping homeowners that have Freddie Mac backed mortgages avoid foreclosure. So a great resource in your community. Now, Freddie Mac and our sister company, Fannie Mae, has partnered with our regulator, FHFA, and we created an online industry standard clearinghouse of translated documents. Together, we've translated over 500 documents into Spanish, Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, and Tagalog. You know, Carmen talked about the changing demographics of future home buyers, and it's important that we provide resources like this to make home possible for all. I encourage you to visit the website and learn an industry term in a new language. Now, I'm going to turn a bit and focus on some of the resources that can help you as a professional. Now, the housing market is constantly changing, and it's important that we stay up to date with news and information. Freddie Mac can help you do that. We've created some ebooks that offer Freddie Mac data and insights that showcase needs and opportunities in the market. Our Affordable Lending Insights page also offers as a great website to bookmark. It has quick read articles that you can actually share directly from our website directly to your social media pages. These resources will highlight you as a professional and a trusted source in the industry. Now, you guys mentioned it in the chat. Carmen went over it as well. We all know down payment is one of the largest barriers to home ownership. Now, we've offered some solutions with, conventional loans that offer 3% down, but we've also partnered with a organization called Down Payment Resources. Now, this is a consumer-facing website where your consumers or even you can go to gain knowledge about down payment assistance in your market. When you go to the website, you can actually enter the address of one of your listings and find out if the house you're selling is actually eligible for some free money. So I encourage you guys to check out this website as well. One of the last resources is our Home Starts Here podcast. It's about a year old now, and what the podcast offers is an opportunity to spotlight industry topics, opportunities for growth, and perspectives of Freddie Mac thought leaders. The podcast is around 10 to 15 minutes, so we encourage you to subscribe when you're on your way to the next, listing appointment. Take a listen. Past topics include COVID-19 relief, our Duty to Serve initiative, as well as other market trends that are driving the market right now. So I'll drop the link again on where you can subscribe. You can also look for Home Starts Here in your Apple or Google Play on your device. Now, I want to remind you that everything we cover today is free to you. We can't market to your buyers. We can't sell anything. We're truly here to be your partner to make home possible for all. So I invite you to stay connected with us by subscribing to our Real Estate Professionals Resource Center. We don't spam you. What we share are key insights, industry trends, and upcoming events that will help you keep you engaged. To subscribe, you're going to visit freddiemac.com/real-estate-pros. When you get there, you'll see all of the resources that we have available. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see a little box. You'll enter your email address and click sign up. Now, I want to thank you guys for all your time today. I know it was a lot of information that we covered, and we have many more great affordable product solutions, webinars coming your way. So please stay engaged with us in 2021. You are the critical link in the home buying process. You are the trusted advisors. We are your cheerleaders cheering you on. I'm going to pass it back over to Carmen to close us out. Again, if you have any other questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll be back next month.
Thank you, Monica. I'm looking and great information. I did drop some of the links as I was trying to enter them in here. So hopefully you can take a look at all the links. I just want to really just say this work in the affordable space is not for the faint of heart, because we do have to overcome some of the myths around affordable housing. A lot of people hear the word affordable and automatically think just a negative thought, right? But truth is that affordable, when I look at teachers and firefighters and police officers and civic workers and nurses and the heroes that have kept us up front and really essential workers during such a pandemic time, fall within that affordable word, right? So we need to start changing that. But it starts with you. It starts with you as a real estate agent doing the good work, because you're out there every single day working with your buyers. You're, helping them, overcome not only the barriers that you shared, but also get access to some great programs and resources that are there. So it may not be a quick turnaround. It may not be year one. Maybe it's year two that they're engaging with you. But the starfish story, right? It takes just one starfish to save, and that's all that really matters. But it means the world for them. So I encourage you to participate in what HAR has set forward with you and for you this year. And I just really want to thank you for the opportunity, and more important, thank you for the engagement. It really means a lot when we can get that engagement back, and you guys have been phenomenal. So with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Shad to close it out.
Guys, I want to thank you for your awesome presentation. It was absolutely great. Will the links for the different programs you can sign up for or use, will those be included in those slides that we'll get?
Yes, they are in the slides. That they are part of the slides, so you can either copy and paste it into your URL when you get that, and they'll work.
Well, I'd like to thank Freddie Mac for sending us two awesome speakers. And guys, this is not just about educating you. It's also about educating your client, letting them know that the housing dream is possible with these types of tools there. So I want to thank you. I hope you will continue to come to these webinars. We're going to continue with them. And as she said, affordable is all relevant depending on where you live. And it is something that we need to be concerned about here in the greater Houston area with the prices going up. We need to know how to get our people in the houses. And so I want to thank my speakers again. Thank HAR. Guys, we appreciate you, and I'll see you at the next webinar.